Have you ever looked at an ancient ruin and felt small? I mean really small. You stand at the base of a colossal stone wall, wondering how anyone could have built it. The stones are massive, weighing tons. The precision is baffling. Your mind starts to race. Could ordinary people have done this? Or was something else at play? This question is older than you think. It's a question that echoes through our oldest texts. It whispers of a time when giants walked the earth. These aren't just fairy tales. They are fragments of a lost history. A story that begins with a single, mysterious word, Nephilim. The idea of giants isn't confined to one culture. Greek myths have their titans, Cyclops. Norse legends speak of the frost giants of Jotunheimer, but the tales of the Nephilim are different. They are tied directly to our own story, the human story. They are described not as mythical beasts from another realm, but as beings who lived alongside us. They walked our lands, breathed our air, and according to the legends, forever changed the course of our history. It's a story that has been debated, dismissed, and rediscovered for thousands of years. It challenges what we think we know about the ancient world. Imagine a time before recorded history, a primordial age, shrouded in mist. It's an expedition into the very heart of human mythology. This journey isn't just about dusty books and ancient languages, it's about a fundamental question. What if our history is bigger and stranger than we've been told? So, what does Nephilim actually mean? The word itself is our first major clue. It appears in the Hebrew Bible, most famously in the book of Genesis. The root is the Hebrew verb nephal. It means to fall. Many translate Nephilim as the fallen ones. The origin story of the Nephilim is one of the most debated passages in the entire Bible. It's found in Genesis 6, and it's as mysterious as it is brief. It says, "The sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose." One popular interpretation is that the sons of God were fallen angels. This theory comes from non-biblical texts like the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish work. Enoch describes a group of angels called the Watchers who were sent to observe humanity, but they became consumed by lust for human women. They abandoned their heavenly post, descended to earth, and took human wives. This was a grave sin, a betrayal of their divine nature. They taught humanity forbidden knowledge, weaponry, sorcery, cosmetics. Their actions are said to have unleashed chaos and corruption upon the world, a point of no return. The offspring of this union were the Nephilim. Another, more grounded theory suggests the sons of God were not angels at all. This interpretation posits that the sons of God were the descendants of Seth, the righteous son of Adam and Eve. The daughters of man, in this view, were from the corrupt lineage of Cain, the first murderer. The sin, then, was not a supernatural union, but a social one. The godly line was mixing with the ungodly, diluting their faith and abandoning their principles. The story of the Nephilim is inextricably linked to the story of Noah's Ark. According to Genesis, the world had become filled with violence and corruption. The text makes a direct connection. The presence of the Nephilim and the wickedness of humanity are mentioned in the same breath. God looks upon the world and regrets creating it. The solution is drastic and absolute, a global flood to wipe the slate clean. Only Noah, a righteous man, and his family would be saved. The Nephilim, these mighty men of renown, would be washed away along with everyone and everything else. The flood was a reset button for creation. This narrative presents the Nephilim as a primary reason for the flood. Their existence was a fundamental violation of the natural order. But did the flood really wipe them all out? This is where the story gets even more interesting. After the waters receded and humanity began anew, the giants seemed to reappear. The Book of Numbers, which takes place centuries after the flood, describes the Israelite spies scouting the land of Canaan. They return with a terrifying report. They say the land is filled with giants, the descendants of Anak, who come from the Nephilim. The spies claim, "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes and we looked the same to them." This is a shocking twist. How could the Nephilim have survived the flood? This second coming of the Nephilim has puzzled scholars for ages. There are a few theories. Whatever the case, the giants were back, and they were standing in the way of the promised land. The story of the Nephilim doesn't end with their mysterious reappearance. It continues in the tales of the Israelites' conquest of Canaan. The land they were promised was not empty. It was inhabited by fearsome tribes, many of whom were described as giants. These weren't just vague reports, the texts give them names and locations. Anakim in Hebron, Rephaim in Bashan, Emim in Moab. One of the most famous giant slayers was Caleb, one of the original spies. While the other spies were terrified of the Anakim, Caleb was confident. Decades later, when the Israelites finally conquered the land, Caleb specifically requested the territory around Hebron. He was an old man by then, but his spirit was unbroken. The Bible says he drove out the 3 sons of Anak, Sheshai, Ahiman, Talmai. Of course, you can't talk about giants without mentioning the most famous one of all, Goliath. The story of David and Goliath is iconic. Goliath is described as a champion from Gath, a Philistine city known to be a refuge for the last of the giants. His height is given as 6 cubits and a span, which could be over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet. He wore a coat of mail weighing over 100 pounds. He wasn't just a big guy, he was a descendant of the Rephaim, a living, breathing link to the age of the Nephilim. When the young shepherd David faces Goliath, it's more than just a battle between 2 men. Goliath represents the old way, brute strength, physical power, and the legacy of the fearsome giants of old. David represents the new way, faith, cleverness, and trust in a higher power. With a single stone from his sling, David brings the giant crashing down. This victory wasn't just military, it was theological. It signaled the end of the age of giants. The belief in giants is universal. Nearly every culture on Earth has stories about them. So, what's going on here? Why were our ancestors so convinced? One of the simplest explanations is the discovery of ancient fossils. Imagine a farmer in ancient Greece plowing. He unearths a massive bone far larger than any he'd seen. No dinosaurs or mammoths in his knowledge, he'd assume a giant. Another reason, awe-inspiring ancient structures, pyramids in Egypt, Stonehenge in England, the massive walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, stones weighing hundreds of tons, impossible without machines. Easier to believe giants built them. The structures became physical proof of a bygone powerful age. Giants also served a psychological purpose, perfect villains. A world full of dangers, famine, disease, wild animals, enemy tribes. Giants gave people a tangible enemy to focus on. Stories of heroes defeating giants asserted human dominance. Finally, giants as memory inflation of real leaders. A tyrant grows into a monstrous giant in story. His army becomes a horde, his fortress impenetrable. Real enemies turned into literal giants. The Nephilim, a prime example of legendary inflation. Fast forward to the 21st century. We have science, archaeology, and a pretty good handle on history. So why are we still so fascinated by the Nephilim? The mystery hasn't been solved, it has evolved. One modern theory recasts the story as science fiction. This is the ancient astronaut theory. It claims the sons of God were not angels or gods, but extraterrestrial visitors. They arrived in advanced spacecraft and were worshipped as divine by ancient people. The Nephilim in this telling are the product of genetic experimentation. Aliens adapting or researching mixed their DNA with early humans. The hybrids were the Nephilim, beings with enhanced intelligence, strength, and maybe psychic abilities. Another theory looks to our deep past. Maybe the Nephilim were a surviving different human species. Homo sapiens once shared Earth with other hominins, Neanderthals, Denisovans. Could giant legends be cultural memories of encounters with these larger, robust humans? Genetic evidence shows interbreeding. Nephilim could be a legendary echo of hybrid children. Skeptical academics offer a different take. Many historians and biblical scholars call the Nephilim mythology an ideological myth, a story to explain things, to explain giant skeletons like mammoth bones, to explain impressive ruins, or to warn against marrying outside your tribe or faith. In this view, Nephilim were never real. They're literary and theological symbols, metaphors for sin and chaos, not historical reality. Despite all the theories, the story of the Nephilim is still riddled with unanswered questions. The biggest mystery remains their true identity. Were the sons of God angels, aliens, a human bloodline? The texts are just ambiguous enough to support any of these interpretations. Without more evidence, a definitive answer is impossible. Then there's the question of their survival. If the Great Flood was a global event designed to wipe them out, how did they reappear in Canaan centuries later? The Bible itself seems to offer a contradiction. Did some survive in a specific region? Did a second angelic rebellion occur? Or is the term Nephilim used more loosely after the flood? The Book of Numbers says the Anakim come from the Nephilim, which suggests a direct lineage. This single point creates a massive puzzle for anyone trying to construct a coherent timeline of events. What about physical evidence? This is the holy grail for any Nephilim investigator. There are countless claims of giant skeletons being unearthed all over the world. United States, Middle East, beyond. These stories often circulate on the internet, accompanied by doctored photos of enormous skulls and femurs. To date, not a single one of these claims has been verified by mainstream science. Every alleged giant skeleton has turned out to be a hoax or a misidentification of animal bones. The lack of a body is the biggest hole in the case for a literal, physical race of giants. And what about the forbidden knowledge? The Book of Enoch claims the fallen angels taught humanity metallurgy, warfare, other arts. Could this be a memory of a sudden leap in technology? The Neolithic Revolution brought agriculture, cities, and advanced tools. Was it the Nephilim or natural human ingenuity? So after all this, why do we still care? We live in an age of science and reason. We've mapped the human genome. We've sent rovers to Mars. Why does a story of giants still hold such power over our imagination? The Nephilim taps into deep human feelings. It speaks to our sense of wonder about the past. It reminds us there are still mysteries to solve. It hints that our history may have lost chapters. The legend reflects power, corruption, blurred boundaries. The Nephilim warn of unchecked ambition, forbidden unions gone wrong, a cautionary tale about trying to become gods. Today we face genetic engineering. Today we face artificial intelligence. Today we chase seemingly limitless power. This ancient warning feels eerily modern. The Nephilim mirror our greatest hopes and darkest risks. The search is more than giant bones. It's a quest for meaning. It forces us to ask big questions. Are we alone in the universe? Is history as simple as textbooks claim? Is there a spiritual dimension we've forgotten? These questions drive explorers. These questions drive scientists. These questions drive dreamers. The legend gives us a framework. It's a door to a stranger, bigger universe. Pushing on that door is irresistible. We are explorers by nature. Whether fallen angels, ancient astronauts, or just a powerful myth, the story endures. Because it's a fantastic story. Gods, monsters, heroes. The Nephilim calls to us across the millennia. The expedition is far from over.